Hey everyone, I'm Jean Chatzky. Thanks so much for joining me today on HerMoney. So I can't even believe I am going to say this, but we have been publishing this podcast weekly for 7 years. We have never missed an episode. How crazy is that? Back in the beginning, it was just me and Kelly with our dream of making a show by women for women about our money, our goals, our work life, our retirement, you name it. And since then, the Her Money team has grown a lot. We have published books, most recently, How to Money, which we wrote with our editorial director, Catherine Tuggle, who you all know. We have started a second podcast called How She Does It with host Karen Feinerman, who you've heard on this show, also met on our Investing Fix program. And Karen has chatted with literally thousands of you to help you budget better and learn to invest in our Investing Fix and Finance Fix courses. Not to mention, our Her Money Facebook group has almost 20,000 members. I love the way that you all jump in and rally around each other, responding to every question posted in the group with so much care and so much thought. And that's why we wanted to devote this 400th episode to you. It's a special mailbag edition. We know mailbag is a lot of your favorite segments. So we asked all of you to send in your most pressing questions that you wanted to chat about in real time. And then I had the opportunity to speak with four listeners, four amazing women live on the air. Let's get into it. Our first listener joining us today is Samantha. Our hearts and our minds are all with the innocent people suffering from political conflicts around the globe. And naturally, it makes us wonder where to keep our money so it stays safe. Hi, Samantha.
Hey Jean, how are you?
I'm good. Where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from Maryland. I'm in Frederick, Maryland.
Ah, wow. Okay. I was in Frederick, Maryland just recently. I go to DC to tape episodes of the other podcast I do that's called Everyday Wealth, and Frederick is right along the way. So
It is
it's
along the way. I'm
lovely
glad you
there.
visited.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you've got a question. Tell me just a little bit about you and where this question comes from.
Well, I appreciate you asking. I appreciate the opportunity. I was excited when I heard it was a 400th episode coming up, and I thought, you know what? This is a good time to ask a question. And I've been following you for a long time. I consider you one of my financial mentors, and
Oh,
I thought,
thank you for that.
you're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you being the financial person in the background for me, so that's great. But I really was thinking, hey, this is a challenging time. We're going through an interesting time kind of culturally. And when I look out there, we've got a lot of like social unrest, a lot of civil unrest. And in my thoughts, I thought there's global atrocities happening right now. And there's countries declaring war on one another, really with the intent to kind of eradicate full populations. And during that time, what happens to our finances? What happens to our savings and our investments? How do we really kind of protect our wealth during this time? And when we look back in history, history has kind of shown us that war can ravage a land physically, it can take life from us, but
Yeah.
it also can really deplete the wealth of a people and their country. And I just kind of got to thinking like, where is my money? What can happen to it right now?
Yeah, boy, it is such a good question to be asking right now, right after the attack of Israel on October 7th. We had a session of Investing Fix, our investment club for women, and we took a look at what happens in times of war to the markets, to investments, what kind of companies tend to do well, what kind of companies tend to suffer. And what's interesting is that markets hate uncertainty, right? They really don't like not knowing. And so they unsurprisingly went down following the original Hamas attacks, just like they did at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. But then they've recovered, and they've recovered fairly quickly, and a lot of money started to flow into what we tend to think of as safer havens. And a lot of those safer havens tend to be in the United States. I mean, our bonds are still considered virtually risk-free. They are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. And so this is not just where Americans have put their money in times of uncertainty. It's where the world has really put its money in times of uncertainty. There are some sectors that tend to do well during these times. Utilities tend to do well, real estate, consumer, the sort of consumer purchases that we have to buy, consumer needs, not consumer wants. Those things tend to do well during volatile times. Energy stocks also do well, although oil has been a bit of a question mark because so much of this activity is taking place in the Middle East. But one of the things that we know for sure that has been a positive is that the U.S. has really diversified where we get our oil from in recent years. And so I think that the overarching advice is to make sure that you've got, as always, a good cash stash for emergencies. You want that emergency fund to be working for you right now. I actually have a stash of cash that I've been stockpiling for a renovation that we're doing at our house at the Jersey Shore. And I went to visit it yesterday and just sort of see what it looks like. And I looked at the interest that I had earned on this account over the year, and I was just like, oh my God, I have earned real money on my savings for the first time in so many decades. And that felt great, but it's not happening if you don't have your savings in a high yield account. So make sure that you've got that. Make sure that your portfolio is widely diversified, that you are really covering the different asset classes, commodities. As you said, I mean, the entire infrastructure of countries is being wiped out. We, of course, hope that will never happen in the United States. But should your real estate suffer from some natural disaster, you want to make sure that not only are you insured, but the rest of your portfolio is there to back you up, and knowing that you're well diversified across all the sectors of the market means that your portfolio will be better able typically to handle the volatile ups and downs. Yes, we had a terrible year across the board in 2022. We hope that we won't get another one of those for a while. You may want to boost the amount of money, or to put a little bit of money into a defensive portfolio that can include things like government bonds. It can include precious metals. It can include dividend paying stocks. Doesn't have to be a huge sector of your portfolio, but you might want to put a little bit. And then I think the big question is, will you be able to sleep at night having done that to your portfolio? And if you find that you can't, then the answer is not to get out, because we never know when the best days in the market are going to come. The answer is to just take a little bit off the table and put it into some cash bearing account. But I find, and I had one of these conversations yesterday, I personally find having a financial advisor helpful at times like this, just so I get a little bit of reassurance about what is happening. And so I don't know if that's something that if that's territory that you've waded into, but it might be a helpful move to make as you age and get closer to retirement.
Great. That's super helpful. All of those things are doable, manageable, and feel like all the right steps. So thank you. That's really helpful.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, it's nothing revolutionary, right? I mean, it's when we just we come back to putting on our pants one leg at a time because it's been shown to work, and so historically we hope that history stays true to itself in some way. So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you for being part of our community. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. And I love that we're going past 400 episodes, and this is
Yay.
such a great network. Love it. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Our second question comes from Laura, and funnily enough, I've been talking a lot about the question she has, which is about figuring out a retirement that's right for you, whether that means working a part-time job to keep a little money coming, whether that means working a part-time job to keep a little money coming in, or spending more time with your family, or traveling the world. Here she is. Laura, hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I'm 64 and I retired earlier this year after some family stresses. My husband died and
I'm
I
sorry.
decided I'd saved enough for retirement. We saved close to $1 million and my Social Security is $3,000 a month. Um, our house is worth about $2 million and it's under a sales contract. It should close in early 2024. And after sales costs and commissions, we should net about $2 million.
Great.
So my question is whether or not I should reverse my Social Security election, and I started that in January, and I believe you have 12 months to reverse it. And the reason is because after I retired, I decided that I was bored. I missed interacting with people and having a goal and contributing. So I started a coaching business, a life coaching and career coaching business, and I've been training for that for a few years. So while I haven't made much money this year, I should make money in 2024 and thereafter, as long as I continue to feel good and want to do the coaching. So I'm not sure exactly how much I will earn, but I don't like being taxed on the Social Security and the earnings and not quite sure what I will earn. So it kind of muddies the picture.
Yeah, I totally get it. Social Security it's just a big, unwieldy ball of
Mhm.
wax, right? With so many different decision points about when to take it, when to wait, whether you should work, how much you should work. Very, very complicated. Let me just ask you a few follow-up questions and then we'll talk about an answer. How is your health?
Well, that's the kicker is I don't know. And I decided to take Social Security early or earlier than full retirement age because I have an incurable lymphoma. So I've been in remission for almost 4 years. According to the doctors, the clinical studies, the research studies, I have an expected life expectancy of someone the same age without it because I've been in remission for over 2 years. But then again, every time I see my oncologist, like every 6 months, he goes, it'll probably come back. And if it comes back, they have lots of drugs to fight it. But it's a question of how strong will I be? Will I want to work on the side? So I always thought I should collect Social Security early because I'd have to live to 82 to meet the delta between collecting at 64 and collecting at 67 or 70. So I've done those calculations.
Right. And for people who are listening, in general, every year you wait to take Social Security between the, yeah, okay. And for people who are listening in general, and again, in general, because there are a lot of things that get very personal as far as Social Security is concerned, but in general, for every year you wait between age 62 and age 70 to claim, you get a bump in benefits equal to about 8%. And that's really significant. And if you're expecting that you are going to have a an average or long lifespan, then in many, many cases, if not most cases, it makes sense to wait to take Social Security as long as you can to full retirement age, which for most people is 67, or to age 70 if you can do it. And it's particularly important if you are the higher earner in the family. The other wrinkle here, which Laura referred to, is that if you work, Social Security starts deducting from your benefits for amounts where you earn over a specific limit each year. So for 2023, the limit is $21,240. If you're under full retirement age, under 67 in this case, they're going to deduct $1 from your benefit for every $2 that you earn, which is very painful for a lot of people to hear. On the flip side of that, you'll get that money back. That will be added back to your benefit when you stop working, essentially.
Oh, really? I didn't remember
so
that.
that amount of money will be added back to your benefit in the form of a higher benefit. So that $3,000 that you're receiving now will actually be higher in the future. I'm just curious, as far as you mentioned that your husband died, are you on his Social Security record
No,
or are you on
I'm
your
on mine.
own?
Yeah.
Yours was
Mine was
greater than
primary.
his?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we don't have to deal with that. But for a lot of people, when the man is the higher earner in the family, it's extremely beneficial to wait to take benefits because you want to max out that benefit, because generally the man will die first. And then if his spouse's Social Security record is less valuable than his own, you can claim on that benefit. You can step into those shoes, but that's not true in your case. Look, here's sort of where I am on this. You're absolutely right. You can essentially repay Social Security benefits after you enroll. This is it's called withdrawing your benefits. You can do it within the first year after you claim. You have to pay back any money that you've earned from Social Security, which I take it would not be a problem for you.
No.
Not a problem. And then Social Security treats it like you never enrolled. Your monthly check continues to grow, and then you can start taking your benefits again. On the flip side, you could just continue to take the benefits, not knowing exactly how much you're going to earn next year. I mean, you think it could be a substantial amount, but maybe it won't be as much as you think. You could take that money, you could just invest it. It could continue to grow in a discretionary brokerage account. You could even, because interest rates are so high, just put it in CDs or put it in a high yield savings account. Are you going to make the full 8%? No, but you'll have it to do the things that you want to do. And I think in your case, and look, I'm not an accountant and I'm not an actuary, but I do believe we need to grab life when we have the opportunity to grab life. And if there are things that you've been wanting to do, and you mentioned to me before we started chatting that you have moved to live near your daughter, if you want to travel, if you want to have other adventures, clearly you are not somebody who likes to sit still if you're launching a new business now. If you want to improve your house, if you want to, I don't know, if there are other things on your list that having this money flowing in would allow you to do comfortably, you're well situated for retirement. You really are in a very, very good position. And I'd like to see you do those things. I'd like to see you figure out what's important to you. And because life is uncertain, and it's uncertain for people who don't have cancer, but it's even more uncertain for people who do.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer you to try to enjoy yourself more with whatever money you have coming in. How does that sound?
It sounds great. I've already planned a trip to Europe next summer, so I'm very excited.
Stay somewhere amazing and eat
Yeah.
really good food.
Yes.
Any follow-ups?
No, I think that answered the question. And I think it probably just, I will let it ride and I'll recoup the extra Social Security at the end if I end up earning a lot of money.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with earning a lot of money in it and recouping some more at the end. So
Yeah.
thanks for the call, Laura. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
listening in.
much.
And I understand you checked out our other podcast, How She
Yes.
Does It. What do you think?
I listened to Olivia Summerhill's episode where she talks about divorce and high earners, and then I connected with her on LinkedIn, and I think she's very interesting and very fun to talk to.
Amazing. Well, Karen Feinerman, our host for How She Does It, is really knocking out some great interviews. So I'm glad that you
Yes.
found it. And thank you for being part of the HerMoney community.
No, thank you.
Stay well. Our third question comes from a listener named Bonnie. She recently lost her mom. She came into an inheritance, and she's got a unique situation because she's also an actor. So she wants to know how to grow that money, but also have enough to pay her day-to-day bills when the checks aren't coming in. Here she is. Hey, Bonnie.
Hi.
So what's up? What's going on? Tell us a little bit about what's happening in your life and how I can help.
Okay, so I inherited money from an estate, and someone hands you this chunk of money you've never had before, and I was curious what you would advise to do with it besides your traditional put it in a Roth IRA or et cetera, especially since some things you have to liquidate in a certain amount of time. So I was just curious if you had any advice on that.
Sure. Tell me a little bit more about this money. Are we talking a big chunk? Who did you inherit it from? Where is it sitting?
Sure. So I inherited from my mom and her estate. That
Oh,
includes her 401k, any IRAs she had, and that actually even included some money she had inherited from my grandmother. So I have it all at Wells Fargo right now, different versions of some investment, but then I also just have a cash account. And I feel like
okay.
it's just sitting there, and I don't know how to make it work for me, especially as an actor. I'm kind of like the perfect person who I don't have my regular weekly or biweekly paycheck where I take money out for my own 401k. That's very contract based. So I'm like the perfect candidate to be like, what do I do with this money in terms of investing or kind of having a little more freedom and fun with it?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about your mom.
Thank you.
And part of the reason that inheritances are so tough
Mm-hmm.
is because there's so much emotion wrapped up in them. And we want to honor the person who left us this money. It's also for most of us a bigger chunk of money than we've ever seen before. And so
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to blow it. And so there's a lot going on there, which is why often my first piece of advice is just sit on it for 6 months. Don't do anything, because when we're feeling so emotional, sometimes we do things that we regret. How how long have you had it, this money? And as you look out into your future, what do you want? What are the big items on your list? Is it just security, trying to carve out a way to provide yourself with a paycheck? Is it a house? Is it an apartment? Is it something else, starting a business? What's on your list?
Okay, so I've had this money now for probably, it's like a little over 2 years, like 2.5 years. I also have a chunk of money in a separate account from my aunt who left me as a beneficiary on her life insurance. So I actually have two inheritances kind of just hanging out. And the thing that I feel like I want to eventually do with this money is buy a house because that's something, again, as an actor, especially a stage actor, it's so rare that we can afford to buy ourselves a home that's a little bit on the higher end or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm like, just comfort and a little bit of security. That's all I really need. I would love to maybe take some of it and travel once a year and take a trip. But when I look at it, I'm like, this is my house money.
Okay.
That's usually where I go.
And round numbers, what are we talking about? And how much of that is sitting in an IRA?
Okay. I know how much I have in cash, which is about, I'm like, let me do the math.
Yeah.
When I went to school, I didn't have to take math, and there's a reason. We count to 4 and 8 as singers and dancers. So I have probably a little over 100,000 in cash,
Okay.
like maybe 120,000 in cash, and then I truly don't know how much is in my IRA. I'd have to like,
But in total, are we talking hundreds of thousands, mid hundreds of thousands,
I would
millions?
say no, we're in like the low hundreds of thousands, like probably somewhere between 150,000 and 200,000.
And that includes what your aunt left too.
Mhm.
Okay. So here's what I think. I would leave the cash in cash. And I would leave the cash in cash because buying a house is on your list. And with interest rates where they are right now, you're likely going to want to put a decent chunk down so that you can avoid private mortgage insurance and maybe minimize the mortgage a little bit. Make sure that you've got that going. I'd potentially consider the money that has to come out of the IRA. So when you inherit money in an IRA, and I think you know this by the way that you asked the question, you have 10 years to get that money out of the
Right.
IRA. You got to take it in distributions and you have to clear it within 10 years. If travel is an item on your list that is way up there, then I might think about using those IRA distributions for travel on a regular basis or for whatever your annual goal happens to be. And then I would think about the rest of the money, the investments, as your future retirement. We've gotta retire sometime. You're in your 30s, is it right?
Yeah.
So this is the gear up time. This is when you want to be putting money away for retirement and doing it on a regular basis and when you've got money that you're earning, you want to be making contributions to your own IRAs and Roth IRAs and things like that and making sure that it's growing for your future. The cash component can work for you at this point, and it should work for you. I don't know where that cash is sitting and what kind of an account it's sitting in, but it should be sitting in a high yield savings account where it's paying you 4 to 5% interest on that $100,000 to $120,000 alone. You're going to earn $5,000 or $6,000 a year, and that's just going to continue to grow for you, and that's great. Keep that going. But I don't think I would go too crazy as far as other things. Take your time, try to figure out when the house is in the cards and make sure that those investments are invested pretty aggressively based on your age because you've got such a long time until retirement. Does that make sense?
It does. And something that always crosses my mind is like, I'm by myself. So sometimes I think about, well, do I need to buy a house? Or is that just thing society? And then you buy a house where I'm like, I rent right now. I can afford my rent in my jobs that I work. And say that I just continued to rent. Do you think I still keep the cash there? Or is that I figure out in the next 5 years, I'm like, I'm not going to buy. It just doesn't make sense for me.
Well, tell me about your work situation. I mean, how
So,
regular a paycheck do you get?
So besides being an actor, which, like when I have a gig, those paychecks weekly are great, but it's few and it's like for 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes you can even be in a shorter contract. So I try like to kind of like remove that and just think about like my full-time gigs. I have my own little side business that I have, and then I also work at a gym, and then I am a dance teacher. So between those three things, I have a pretty stable income month to month. Of course, they're all freelance gigs, but I kind of know where I'm going to fall every quarter. So that's my, if I just eliminate the fact that I could or could not have a acting gig.
Do you feel on your current income that you
Mhm.
can save? Do you move some money every single month into a Roth IRA?
I don't know if right now I could save. I would have to be a little more tight on my budget, which like I think I could be, but I also now because of my life circumstances, also I'm just like, do I want to not go out to dinner twice a month just to take a little bit of a small amount of money and put it away when I have in the background some of these funds that I know about, or do I want to live my life? Because now I think because of what happened to my mom, I kind of like don't say no to things. Because had she known the way she was going to leave this earth, she would have said yes to going on one or two more trips probably. Because she lived like very budget friendly. She was very frugal and whatever. And God has turned around, I guess, and she's given that to me. But sometimes I'm just like, I would only be able to save on that kind of money, 100 to 200 a month, maybe.
So 100 to 200 a month is not insignificant. But I also understand you've got these other funds and you can put them to work for you. To answer your question, no, I don't think you have to buy a home. And I especially don't think you have to buy one now. The
Mm-hmm.
calculus has never been more in favor of people who rent. Now it's very expensive to buy a home and it's a lot cheaper to rent. And so for a lot of people right now, renting is going to be the right move. At some point, you're going to want to make sure that you're on track for retirement.
Right.
And that essentially means we have a series of benchmarks that we follow, where we look at the amount of money that we have in retirement accounts. And by your 30s, you should have 1 times your income in a retirement account. By your 40s, you should have 3 times. By your 50s, you should have 6 times. By your 60s, you should have 8 times.
Okay.
And by the time you retire, you should have about 10 times your income in a retirement account that you can use to fund the rest of your life. Now, with this sum of money, if you get a if you put it to work in the right way, it probably could create that for you. You
Mm-hmm.
may need to add to it a bit, but you're way ahead of the 30 age range benchmark. So you can use the growth on that money to propel you into the future. It
Mm-hmm.
does probably mean taking some of the money that you have in cash and putting it to work. And you may want to start a habit of just open a Roth IRA and move money on a regular basis out of that cash account into that IRA where it goes to work, and just continue that habit for the rest of your life. The money that your cash is going to spill off is going to fund a Roth IRA contribution for this year. And that's a nice way to look at it. I also think that right now, I don't think you necessarily need a financial advisor that you have on call for the rest of your life,
Mm-hmm.
but you have an opportunity right now that you don't want to blow. And so I think now would be a really good time to sit down with somebody and just chart it out. This is the age at which I think I'm going to want to stop working. This is how
Mm-hmm.
much money I think I'm going to need to have. This is where I think I might live. Knowing all of these things could potentially change.
Mm-hmm.
And just use that as some wind to carry you into the next few years and feel confident that you're doing right by this money.
Yeah, for sure. Which, I mean, it's great. It's great advice. And I also, it's just something I have the luxury as an actor to even think of, especially as an actor at 34, to even be able to think about where my retirement money is going or where money I'm going. Most of us are like paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah,
like
no, I
like eating dollar pizza. That's it. So I definitely want to take advantage of it. And I feel like I just know it's there and it just kind of sits there. I know there are some investment accounts I would have to be better with my money and look.
You absolutely have to look.
Yeah.
Looking is non-negotiable, and
Yeah.
a financial advisor will help you do that. Take a look at something called the XY Planning Network. It's a
Okay.
network of financial advisors for Gen X and Y, basically. And
Okay.
you'll find people who'll charge by the hour. You'll find people who'll do a one-time consultation, but it's a nice network for people like you. I understand that among your side gigs, you've got a podcast.
I do. It's
Tell us
new.
about that.
It's called the Grieving Girl podcast because not only was my mom unfortunately killed 2 years ago, my dad has also been dead for almost 20 years.
Oh,
So when my mom died, I was kind of so lost. I was like, there's got to be something out there for me to listen to. Not like any podcast was going to have any advice for me to get through what I was about to get through, but just like maybe I'd hear something enlightening because now I was the executor of the estate. So now I'm just not only am I just trying to get through the grief, but the business of death is wild. And what they say about the only thing certain in life are death and taxes, they are not wrong. So I just felt so lost that I was trying to find something that clicked with me as like a younger millennial trying to figure this whole thing out. And there really wasn't anything that was clicking for me. So I decided, since I was pretty active on my social media, that I just couldn't go back to posting on the internet like nothing happened. My mom was like, we were kind of like the Bobbsey twins. They just kind of like went everywhere together. I was like, I'd be a total liar. And so I started writing and sharing, and people were just like, please keep doing this because you're really good at putting into words what a lot of people can't, which I was like, maybe that's my acting school or just like my public speaking skills. So I started the podcast just to host conversations amongst millennials. We laugh, we cry. We try to keep it
yeah.
light because it's such a heavy topic that like if you're already feeling heavy, you don't want to be listening to something heavy either. So I try to keep a little bit of lightness amongst something that's so daunting for so many people. And
We
it's really
will,
new.
yeah, we will check it out, and I'm sure that our listeners will check it out as well.
Yeah.
It's the grieving girl. It's on all the platforms.
Yes. All
All
the
right.
all the platforms and YouTube.
And YouTube. We will
Yeah.
take a look. Bonnie, thanks for being on our 400th show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me and thanks for your advice.
And finally, let's hear from Denise, who's recently paid off her condo. Congrats on that, Denise, and is wondering where to put that extra money now that it's not going to her mortgage payment. Here's our conversation. Hey, Denise, where are you calling in from?
Hi, Jean. I'm calling in from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Amazing. I grew up in the Midwest myself. Has winter hit you already?
Not quite yet, but it is getting a little cold.
Soon enough, right?
Yes.
How can I help today? What's your question?
Well, my question is, I'm exploring what my spouse and I's next steps should be. We're planning on having our mortgage paid off next year, middle of next year. So with that $2,000, I'm not sure that we've been putting towards our mortgage now. I'm not sure what we should do with that, if we should put it into a high risk or high yield savings account or put in stackable CDs, or what we should do with that money. Invest it? I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, no, it's a good trade-off question, right? There are so many different options. In order to answer it, I need to know a little bit more about your life. So tell me about you and your spouse. How old are you guys? What are your plans for retirement? How much you have stashed away for retirement now? And how that compares to your income. And we can sort of take that one by one. So tell me a little bit about you.
I'm 52 years old and I work as a therapist. I have a private practice in St. Paul, Minnesota that I own, and then I work full-time for an insurance company, more of a corporate job. So I have kind of two things that I do. And my spouse is 62, and she's a dean at the University of Minnesota. Retirement plans, probably in the next 5 years or so for her. I'll probably step down a little bit with my work. Our plans for retirement is to stay here in our condo that'll be paid off so that we can stay in other places for a few months at a time. We're not planning on buying a second house anywhere, but she has family in Singapore, so we'll spend some time there and then some time here. And then our retirement right now, we have about, I think, 1.2, 1.3 million, depending on the market for the day.
And will she get a pension because of her job?
No, she does not get a pension. She has the 403B. I have the 401k. She has
Okay.
the 403B, and then I have a little Roth and a couple IRAs.
Okay. And how much do you guys earn together?
Together, it's 280, around 280,
Okay.
and no
So
children or
basically,
dependents, no other
okay,
responsibilities.
just the two
Yes.
of you. So I would probably look at heavying up on retirement.
Okay.
You may want to, do you have some emergency savings in a high yield savings account now?
Yes, we have a little over 80 in a high yield savings
Okay.
account that has worked out well for when we have like an $8,000 emergency, like the water heater and things like that. So,
When you are looking toward retirement, what we know is that we have these benchmarks, and they combined with Social Security will spill off enough money to basically replace about 80% of our pre-retirement income. So by the time you're 30, you want to have 1 times your savings put away for retirement. In your 40s, 3 times. In your 50s, 6 times. In your 60s, 8 times. And by the time you retire, 10 times. Now, you guys are right about where you should be for your age. You're a little behind to where you should be for her age and her retirement. The fact that your house will be paid off is a really nice way to go into retirement, right? Not to have to worry about the cost of that beyond taxes, insurance, upkeep, maintenance, that sort of thing. But when I look at this opportunity to stash away more, I'd try to get a little further ahead on those benchmarks before you're both retired. And so I would probably leave the money that you've got in the high yield savings account. I don't think that you've got too much in there that's liquid. I think especially with one person heading into retirement, you want it to be fairly liquid. And then I would put the rest in your retirement accounts. If you have the ability to stash away more in a tax advantaged way, I would do that. We know that the limits on 401k contributions and 403b contributions are going up. You guys are eligible to make catch-up contributions. You should be. What do you have as far as health insurance?
we both have it through our employers, so the premiums are paid by our companies.
Are either of you in an HSA?
Oh, yes, I have an HSA. My spouse doesn't, but I do. That I can funnel some money in there.
If you're looking for another way to put aside money in a tax advantaged way and you exhaust your ability to do it through your 401ks and 403bs, go to that HSA and make sure you're maxing out the contributions there. And then think about paying for healthcare, whatever you need, out of your current spending dollars and letting the money in that HSA continue to grow. What you want to do, the benefit of an HSA is that, like a Roth IRA, that money just grows. And when you need it in retirement or any time down the road for a qualified medical expense, you can just pull it out. You don't have to pay any taxes on it. So if you have health expenses now and you save your receipts, then you can use those receipts anytime in the future against money that you pull out of that HSA for medical expenses. So it's a really nice way to build a supplemental retirement savings account.
Okay.
So I would look at doing that as well. And I think you guys are really doing fine. I think you are on a good pace. It looks like you're saving a decent amount of money. You may at some point want to sit down with a financial advisor and do a pre-retirement checkup and just chart it out. You know, this is what our cost of living looks like. This is what it looks like once we've paid off the condo. This is how much we expect to spend on our trips abroad, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to do that. Do we have enough money, or do we need to save more? That's really the question. And I think you're doing great.
Okay. I appreciate the direction with the HSA accounts, because I put money in and take it out throughout the year. So it's like an airport for me. But I think going forward, I'll leave that and let it grow and max out the 401k, because I'm not exhausting that. I can put more money towards that.
That sounds perfect. Just one more tip on the HSA. You're going to need to turn on the investing option. So reach out to the provider of that account and tell them that you want to invest the money.
Okay.
And then just look for a simple fund that lines up with how you're investing your 401k. There should be something that looks like a balanced fund or a target date fund or a life cycle fund.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You are so welcome. Thank you for joining us for our 400th episode. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you again. I've been a long-time listener, and I too love You've Got Mail. I think you shared that last week on the podcast, my favorite movie too. So yeah, thank you.
Exactly. You can't do better. I'm excited to see the new Meg Ryan rom-com. I know it's not going to be Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, but Meg Ryan and David Duchovny in an airport for 2 hours. I'm good with that.
I know, me too. I can't wait.
Yeah. Thanks, Denise. Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
Thanks for joining me today on Her Money, and thank you so much to this incredible community of women, whether you have been with me since day one or you are a new listener. We appreciate all of you.